Hello and welcome to Chapter 6 on Congress. So, previously we'd looked at the Constitution, which has established three branches of government: Article 1, the legislative branch; Article 2, the executive branch; and Article 3, the judicial branch. Well, the legislative branch is Article 1 because they make the laws. They have the power of the purse. They control the money. And so in that way, collectively, they in many ways have the most power. Among the things that it mentions in your book on this that you need to be aware is it's what's called a bicameral legislature. It means it has two houses. If you think of the U.S. Capitol building, that's the building that they stormed on January 6th because that's where Congress was certifying the vote for president. Well, on one side of the building is the U.S. Senate. They have 100 members, 2 from each state. On the other side of the building is the House of Representatives. There are 435 members. That's based on population. Congress, it gives some demographics of Congress, and there's some charts, some pie charts that illustrate that. Only recently did we finally get over 100 women in Congress, but still only about a fourth of Congress are women, so they're very underrepresented in that respect. There are, as you see, most of them are white, but more recently you do have minorities represented as well. The majority are Protestant or Catholic, but we also have Jewish, Buddhist, Hindu, Muslim, and of other different faiths as well. How do members stay in Congress? Well, first and foremost, people love to hate Congress. They're like, approval ratings of Congress are like lower than anybody else. It's like 20%. Do you approve of Congress? And the polls are like 20%. And then the next question, do you approve of your congressperson? And people are like, oh yeah, he's pretty good. And it's like, okay, well, how can everybody hate Congress if your congressman is okay? It just doesn't add up. Well, but it does, and that is because there's a huge advantage in incumbency. If you're the incumbent, first of all, people know who you are right from the get-go. And if you're going to challenge an incumbent, nobody knows who you are unless you're like a celebrity or something, which is why a lot of former athletes and celebrities, because they have name recognition, but it's very difficult to unseat an incumbent. And people talk about term limits and things. First of all, the only way you can get term limits at the federal level is you'd have to amend the Constitution. You'd have to change the Constitution because the Constitution doesn't limit that. It doesn't say in there that you're limited to the number of terms. So you'd have to amend it, which is not going to happen because it's so difficult to amend the Constitution. So that's really gives a great advantage to incumbents, but they're defeated from time to time. One of the ways they might be defeated is through gerrymandering. So gerrymandering in Congress is a huge problem because they can draw, each state can draw the boundaries how they want to. Now, I've already established that in the Senate, there's 2 senators for every state, and they are statewide. So our 2 senators represent the entire state, and you get to vote for both of them once every 6 years. Their terms are for 6 years. Now, for the House of Representatives, they only serve 2 years, a 2-year term. So they're up for re-election every 2 years. And conceivably, you could have 435 new members of Congress in 2 years. But that never happens because the incumbents often win. But there is some changeover. Oklahoma has 5 representatives. We have 2 senators, 5 representatives. But how do you draw those lines? Now, the Supreme Court has said that it must be somewhat proportional, meaning, and I forget what I think it's about 750,000 people for each representative. So you have to be within the ballpark there, pretty close to that. But how else do you draw the lines? It's up to them. So what happens is the party in power in Oklahoma, that's Republicans, are going to draw those lines so that in the most advantageous way for them to win. And usually that's done by a splitting. So I'll give you an example. I think it was the 4th district. there was a woman, and I want to say her name is Sally Hearn, a Democrat, and she won in Oklahoma, which is a really red state. And it was shocking. I was shocked. Nobody had anticipated that she would win. How did she do it? Well, she campaigned her butt off to defeat the incumbent, number one. But number two, that district included Norman, which is a college town, much more liberal and democratic, and it included East Oklahoma City, which is heavily African-American, which is also far more democratic. Well, guess what happened when they redrew the district? Well, as you can imagine, they carved that up. That way they split more of the Democrats into different districts, and that way they could hold that seat, and that way a Democrat would not be able to win that seat in the near future. That's gerrymandering, okay? I don't have time to explain every concept because I'm just trying to make this a short video, and I only have 4 minutes left, but that was a basic idea of gerrymandering. They talk about leadership in Congress. I think one of the things I want to do, the powers of Congress, the powers of Congress are defined. It's called the enumerated powers. It lists them to coin money, they declare war, to regulate trade, and to regulate commerce. And then there's the elastic clause, all powers necessary and proper to carry out the other duties. And that has meant to a great broadening of the powers of Congress as well. So there is that. As far as the current Congress, with 3 minutes or left of this video, what we've seen is very much divided government in the last 20 to 30 years. Right now, the Democrats are in control of the Senate and the Republicans are in control of the House of Representatives. But the Republicans are only in control of the House of Representatives by 5 votes, so out of 435. So they can't lose too many of them. And what that means is you have much more partisanship, meaning people align more with the political parties than with the country, and there's more fighting because of that. There's another reason for partisanship, and that is the gerrymandering, because a lot of elections for representative are decided at the primary level. So in other words, in Oklahoma, you know that whoever wins the Republican primary is going to win the election. The Democrat's not going to win. So what happens is the people running, they don't have to appeal to Democrats. They don't have to appeal to moderates. They need to appeal only to Republicans, and especially to conservative Republicans. And that means that people elected are far less moderate and more extreme in their views. And that happens in Democratic states too, because there's Democratic states where whoever wins the Democratic primary is going to win the election. So they're going to appeal much more to liberal members, and they're going to be more liberal and more partisan. So that's why we see more polarization in American politics, in large part because of gerrymandering. And it's unfortunate. A lot of stuff too about how the Senate works and Senate leadership. Some other issues to come up. I mean, age is a big issue because, you know, Mitch McConnell, his health is declining. We have in California, Dianne Feinstein, her health too, but there's been always these senators that stay there forever, and that becomes something of an issue too. I mean, how long should they be able to do that? One of the functions of Congress too is oversight. They oversee the other branches and can investigate other branches as well. And part of that oversight would include impeachment in the executive or even in the judicial branch as well. And that is an overview of most of the things. Right now, you know, again, the next election in 2024, of course, everyone's focused on the presidential election, but you want to pay attention to Congress. In some ways, it's more important than the presidential election. It's just because there's going to be about 500 of them, 460 roughly, 435 representatives and about 30 senators that are running for election. People don't pay attention to that. But whoever controls Congress, right now it's divided. But if one party, all Republican or all Democrat, control Congress, that's a huge deal. So be paying as much attention to that as anything else. that's your overview for this chapter. It's a big one. It's a doozy, as they all are. Good luck. If you have any questions, please email me. I really wish I had more time to teach all of these concepts. I'm trying to basically take a 3-hour lecture and get it into 10 minutes, and it's the best that I can do. The rest of it you have to learn on your own, which is why you take classes online. Email me if you have questions.